Hi, hello everybody. I hate listening to the things about me. All that means is that I'm old and that I've done a lot of things. Look, I am a geek, proudly so, and so the things I'll show you for about 15 to 18 minutes is a micro look from a personal view. It's like your view on social media, and then I also pull up to a macro view how social media over the last, I'd say since 2016, but globally, you went all the way to 2014, how it has become a behavior modification system and how you can try to protect yourself against this, right? It's fantastic to listen. I mean, if you think about what has happened in the last year, everything as we know it has been destroyed. By the time we all get the vaccine and we can go back out into the real world, you are going to help create the world that will be. So let me start. I'll share my screen. Hold the line is, for me, I came up with this in the end of 2016, 2017, because it's about the line of our rights, right? Where does your right begin? Where does another's end? Where is the government? Where's the constitution? How are these lines set? That's what hashtag hold the line means. It also can mean, what do you believe in, right? What are your values? Do you believe in empathy? Do you believe in freedom of speech? Do you believe these are the values that you're going to be looking for, right? So let me try to make this. So the thing that I've learned now is that while you think of social media as just getting connected, right? As early as the end of 2016, that slide on the left, this one, is actually something Al Jazeera quoted from me. If you can make people believe lies are the facts, then you can control them. And then the one on the right is an MSNBC. It's Tim Snyder. He's a Yale University professor. He wrote a book called On Tyranny. He's a historian. He said his book basically showed over time that if you want to rip the heart out of a democracy, you go after facts. That's what modern authoritarians do. Step one, you lie all the time. Step two, you say it's your opponents and the journalists who lie. Step three, everyone looks around and says, what is truth? There is no truth. Then resistance is impossible and the game is over. That's the biggest battle right now in our information ecosystem, the battle for facts. And I think the biggest change that's happened in my thinking is that when you are battling for facts, when the battle for facts is in, when you're battling for facts, then journalism becomes activism. And I'll say that one last time, right? Because facts underpin everything. If you don't have facts, you can't have truth, right? Your truth grows out of the facts that you have. And if you don't have truth, you can't have trust. If you don't have any of these, then democracy is impossible. In fact, if you don't have facts, any meaningful human endeavor is impossible. How can we deal with climate change? How can we deal with the coronavirus if we don't have a shared set of facts, right? So that's the problem. And then I want to take you back to 2016 and show you how facts have come under attack in the Philippines. If you look here from January 2015 all the way to April 2017, the red lines and go down four. I can't actually use my pointer, but if you go down bayaran, we all know what bayaran means, right? If you're a foreigner, it means corrupt. And you can kind of see that since January 2015, it's there because corruption is endemic in the Philippines, right? But you can see beginning around January 2016 that these are mentions on social media that they began pounding bayaran. And then by April 2016, by May 2016, certainly by July 2016, which is when the drug war really began, you can see it's a solid line, meaning that you've essentially shifted fact into fiction, fiction into fact, right? And these are just numbers, but I'll tell you what the numbers mean. It took me getting arrested, which, frankly, I wouldn't recommend it. I was arrested, and all of a sudden, the social media blew up, right? This, by the way, this year is the 6th year in a row that the Filipinos have spent the most time on social media globally. We are number one in terms of our use of social media, and number one, more than 10 hours a day on the internet. Now, here's the micro, some of the effects of the attacks against me. As early as 2016, I started getting attacked personally because I didn't forget the number of people killed. I stuck to the number even as we still saw it change in plain sight. We held power to account. That's the job of a journalist. We haven't stopped. But then I got attacked. As many as an average of 90 hate messages per hour. That happened in 2016, right? So these are only some of the things: my gender, the way I look, the way I sound, and the effect of all of this is to pound the target to silence, to control the narrative. And then what happens is they astroturf, they then create artificial consensus, they manufacture consensus. And the goal of that is to create a fake bandwagon effect, to make you think that I must be a caveman, or I must be lying. Because if so many people are saying that, then the facts that we are trying to give you can't be true. Well, on social media, you repeat a lie a million times, it becomes a fact. But guess what? In the real world, the facts don't change. So the number of people who died in the drug war, that hasn't changed, even though we know that the first casualty in our battle for facts, our country's battle for truth, is the exact number of people killed in the drug war. One more time. Here is the world we live in. And the reason why I want you to see this, it's a bit geeky, but this is really important because this is how you are being manipulated and how technology is incredibly important. We start with our smartphones, right? The smartphones that we have collect data on us. This collects data. But on top of that, this is the medium. It's with us all the time. It's personal. It also, you have Spotify or Netflix or Facebook or YouTube on your cell phone. Each one of those actually has algorithms that recommend, that take your behavior and then recommend content for you, nudges that can change the way you think, right? And let me explain this in two ways. This is the hype loop process, the machine intelligence. I'll start with like one tech decision, which is how we grow our social media networks, is a tech choice by recommending friends of friends. So an engineer decided this is the most efficient way to make each of us grow our social media platform, our networks, personal networks, which then grows the platform. So here's what happened in the Philippines in 2016. At the beginning, we all agreed on facts. But then what happened is, as President Duterte took office, the Friends of Friends recommendation took the pro Duterte people and moved them further right. The anti Duterte, the algorithms recommended Friends of Friends to grow their networks, they moved further left. And over time, in the last few years, it tore our society apart. It tore the public sphere apart. And this is how we could begin to have alternate facts, right? You don't know what's fact and fiction, partly because the social media platforms, which are now the world's largest distributor of news, actually prioritizes, and these are studies that have shown this, prioritizes the spread of lies laced with anger and hate over really boring facts. So I actually wind up saying that, social media is biased against facts and biased against journalists. Why? Because social media captures your emotion, and what spreads fastest on social media is anger and hate. Our anger and hate. All right, so we have this. So now you've divided society. What happens? Well, here's the other part. So now we look at the trends that's on the right side. Personalized mass persuasion. This is a chart that was put together by Sinan Oral. He's from MIT. He's got a book called The Hype Machine. When he says personalized mass persuasion, it means that every one of us is fed a different stream. So if you are your Facebook news feed will be different from the person next to you. We don't share the same reality, right? So, but if you want to actually nudge to change the way people think, you can buy ads. And so this is what happens when you put a post in. When you put in your post on social media, there's something called machine learning that creates a model of who you are. And then that model, if you guys saw The Social Dilemma on Netflix, you know the Ben model, right? So there is this kid who's putting his posts on Facebook. Facebook creates a model of you. That model knows you better than you know yourself. Then artificial intelligence takes all of our models and then takes your most vulnerable moment to a message and sells it, whether that is to a company, the new advertising, or to a country, propaganda. And then when it comes back to you, whatever content they send you, whether you click or not, goes right back into the machine learning. It is a perpetual behavior modification system, right? So personalized mass persuasion. Hyper socialization means things spread super, super fast. Everything you do, like before, it would be that you could go out for a walk alone. Now, no longer, right? Especially if you take your phone with you. But hyper socialization means that in the real world, we have 6 degrees of separation. That's also a study that's come out through the years in the real world. But on Facebook, you have 3.75 degrees of separation. That's why things go viral. That leads to the tyranny of trends, right? Which is we all kind of feel like instead of the wisdom of crowds, we become a mob. It is very, very easy to manipulate. And what I've wound up saying the last 2 years is that social media has become a behavior modification system, and we are Pavlov's dogs. If you study psychology, Pavlov's dogs, the dogs were what Pavlov, the psychologist, experimented on. This is a real-time experimentation on our minds. Here's what we can change: the business model, because social media platforms make more money the angrier we get, right? Their algorithms now actually spread disinformation, hate speech, conspiracy theories, and they wind up making more money. Code, the kind of code that is written in, right? What kinds of algorithms are manipulating us? Norms is how we behave. I've never seen Filipinos be so nasty to each other as we are today on social media. It never used to be like that. We're very friendly. And in fact, I have data to support that. The mood meter on Rappler until 2016, the top mood was happy, followed by angry. After 2016, overwhelmingly, anger was the top mood. That's norms. And finally, laws. And this is what I'm working on now globally is, what are the laws? What are the guardrails? We're trying to stop, as journalists, impunity of the government in terms of the drug war. Well, how do we stop the impunity of the social media platforms? September 22, 2020, Facebook takes down 2 influence operations. One was a Filipino influence operation. An influence operation or information operations tries to manipulate you. It is concerted. It's a psyops campaign. Rappler had flagged the one in the Philippines because it was connected to the police and the military, and it was trying to tag terrorists, right? If you said something that questions government, you could be tagged, red tagged. And in at a time when anti-terror law is up, it's dangerous. So that was the first one. But the second one was interesting to me. The second one was an influence operation from China. And this influence operation from China was not only creating fake accounts for the US elections, because this was September, those fake accounts were created with photos made by artificial intelligence, right? So it's there. So it's trying to infiltrate US elections, but it was most effective in Southeast Asia, in the Philippines. Let me end with this. This is what you need to take out of this talk. This is the world we live in today. Combine it with online and offline violence to create a climate of fear. Anyone who questions a brutal drug war, supports those who fight for truth, attack with the full force of the Philippine government, make them cautionary tales for anyone demanding truth. ABS-CBN's lost its franchise. IC Salem, there were two journalists who were jailed last year. Frenchie May Cumpio, who's still in prison, she was jailed February, a year ago, almost a year ago, last year, and IC Salem, who was arrested in December last year. Just last night, a Mandaluyong court overturned the decision and said that the police didn't have the right to arrest her, to walk into her home, right? So there's some wins there. Here's what you need to do if you're coming in. And I know you're young, but that's also why you have a lot more at risk than someone like me who's quite old, right? We lived through our people power, and we already fought a dictator. And now it is happening in plain sight. Um, and it is always about power and money. So here's what you can do: you have to look at your area of influence. You have to demand facts, demand accountability from power, stand up against bullies, report the lies. Tell your family and friends, because courage spreads. We begin by taking care of just what's in front of us. Even as you're struggling with online learning, you, more than my generation, you are online, right? That's what I think is happening. So thank you. Thank you for listening.